21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
My name is Tait. I am the CEO of Decimal and the host of the After the First Million podcast. For me, I am on a mission to make it easier to be a business owner, to run a business. Whether that's through my company Decimal, which helps with some of the boring stuff like accounting and bookkeeping, or through my personal mission, which is creating content, creating relationships that help entrepreneurs adapt and evolve with their businesses, with the changing landscape of technology, with all of the things that just naturally change and stress in being a CEO, particularly of a fast-growing company. The way that my mission started and kind of the kernel or the seed that grew into what it is today really started with my whole life. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. In fact, in Labor Day weekend, I was at a family reunion. We had 60 people under one roof. Out of those 60 people, 12 either were currently running or had run a large company or organization. My dad was an entrepreneur. My grandpa was an entrepreneur. My cousins, my wife, my uncles, like it just is something that I grew up around. And I grew up seeing the joys that they had, the struggles they had, the impacts that they had. And I always knew that that was something that I wanted to do, was to be an entrepreneur and to help make it easier to be a business owner. Oddly enough, though, my personal journey started, I always joke I'm a recovering attorney. So I started out as a lawyer. Now, I did that because when I asked my dad and my grandpa what they thought my start should be, they both said, go be a lawyer. You'll save a hell of a lot of money on legal fees. Yeah, and they weren't wrong. More importantly, though, it re-taught me how to think. It provided me with a really good foundation to be a leader and to understand all the chaos and complexity that happens being a business owner. And to be totally frank, other than the fact that I met my wife in law school, so she would tell you it was a really great decision that I did it, I was a really bad lawyer. And it wasn't something that I saw as a future for my career. And when I had an opportunity to leave the law firm that I had initially joined, I decided I wanted to swing the pendulum and I wanted to get in the tech scene. And there was a growing tech scene in Indianapolis where I live. And I spent a lot of time networking around and I found a company that they were called BidPal at the time. They're called One Cause now, that was serving nonprofits and helping nonprofits raise more money. And they had always done kind of boots on the ground, old school sales approach, but they'd always wanted to test that kind of inside model, sell over phones. It was long enough ago that like video conferencing was not the world's biggest thing at the time. Yeah, but they wanted to sell remote and they'd never done it. By the way, I had never done it either. And the CEO of the company basically asked, he said, hey, would you like to come in? You can do this, it works, you can grow it, you can build it. And it was fun. It was an amazing experience. It was so much different than being a lawyer. It was an adventure for me. I loved the sales. I am innately, inherently good at sales. And that's something that I kind of found through that process is I just like talking to people and building relationships quickly. And that's what truly good sales, I think, is relationship building. And that grew. And still to this day, I mean, that's almost 10 years later, that is how BidPal or One Cause now does their sales primarily. It was a really good moment for me to grow. It gave me the chance to get into corporate life. And it gave me the chance to kind of build my business muscles. From there, let's continue to follow what is a very winding and non-linear path to where I am today. I got offered the opportunity to run a legal tech company, so kind of combining my two careers for somebody. And it was a legal software that sold to personal injury attorneys. And we were able to grow that, and it went really, really well. After a few years of doing that, though, and I would say kind of it was where I had my first two kids. We had twins, which for anybody that has twins is like a 2-year black hole of your life that you do not remember anything. Yeah, I was desperately ready to have my own thing. Now, I made a lot of big mistakes, such as I jumped on the first good idea that I thought would be a good business and totally wasn't. And we started a company that got into restaurant marketing tech. And there are some venture funds that I know that if somebody comes to them with a restaurant marketing or tech company or idea, they will have them call me and I will talk them out of it very quickly. It was one of those businesses that was a good idea and it was a terrible company. We raised some money, we grew the business, and it totally failed. That was when I started to realize how hard it is to be a business owner. And I used the time kind of after that to really figure out foundationally who I was as a person and what I needed to be happy and successful. It was a decoupling of my self-worth from success, which ironically, once I then started what is now Decimal, our current company, has led to a lot more success. But really setting that foundation, I did a lot of just thinking and looking at how my grandpa and my dad and generations of people that I knew were doing entrepreneurship, and they were doing it successfully, but not what I would call well all the time. And as the world and technology have changed, so too do we as leaders have to adapt to that. And that's what's allowed me to adapt. And starting Decimal, we are a venture-backed accounting company. We do bookkeeping and tax. So I am now a lawyer running a bookkeeping and tax company. Fundamentally, nobody wants me to ever touch their books or taxes. But we saw a need because I always joke that the three worst things about running any business are HR, IT, and accounting. You have to do them. But when you have to focus on one of those three things, you as a business owner feel like you're moving backwards. Forwards is helping customers or clients. It's getting new customers or clients. Like that's what you feel like you're doing when you're moving forward. Coaching your team, like doing things that lift your organization up. That's what you always want to do. That's why you start or run your business. HR, IT, and accounting are not that. And I had always struggled at my previous companies to really get the accounting side done well. And it's an industry where accountants don't get it well either. Firms don't get this done well. And so we wanted to start it with a very client-centric, very technology-first approach. And it's grown. In 5 years, we've now helped over 1,000 businesses, and our team is almost at 100 people. And we've really, really worked and developed an amazing organization with it too. We are entirely remote. And yeah, we started during the pandemic basically, but we've continued the remote nature of our company and we've built an amazing culture. And we've done that by one, hiring amazing people, like really a great team, but also anchoring them with values and not just having company values, but talking about them, anchoring them with key behaviors that exemplify that. Like our mission at Decimal is to help make it easier to be a business by doing the boring things you have to do. Now I can extrapolate that out from my own personal mission. And as we've grown Decimal, I get to do that in a way that complements the company. And that's where starting the podcast after the first million came in. We get to help tactically businesses make it easier by doing their bookkeeping and bill pay and, pay their bills, get paid, track it all of that stuff. But then as a business owner, it's hard to grow with a company. It's hard to understand the differences of, hey, I'm in startup mode where everything you do is hands-on and you have to do it all. And what works as a founder of a new company is breaking processes, not having it, just doing that. But then you scale. and you start to grow and you realize all the things that you rebelled against, you now have to put in place. You have to hire people that complement your skills. You have to admit that you need that complementary skill set. You have to put in processes because you have to admit that you can't work without it. And chaos is not a good format for running a company. And not only do you have to do these things, but then you have to have this mental acceptance of, I have to do them because I can't. And you can only do so much. And so this is where my missions as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a founder and leader, have really hit these crossover moments of, I just want to make it easier on people to do things that I really think are amazing. Our world economy, particularly the US economy, is backed by small businesses. Everybody talks about the Fortune 500 companies and the multi-billion dollar companies, but it is truly small businesses that make this country run, that employ the vast majority of people. But it's hard. They are high failure rates. Startup rates of new companies are increasing. Failure rates are increasing as well. That means that the value proposition and ease at which people are doing things is getting harder. But technology is also changing in a way that should make it easier. So what that means is that people don't truly understand how to use the technology, how to apply it upstream, how to change their business models to make life easier. And that's where all of this starts to come together for me and for Decimal is we get to combine in a mission. And now look, it's totally cheating to win because as a founder, Decimal took on my mission and I got to apply it over there. And now I get to expand it how I want to. But that's okay because we've grown to that point. I have the team that can manage the day-to-day of the company, which allows me to expand the brand, expand the impact of kind of what we do. One of the things that's interesting to me as an entrepreneur is how much I personally have had to change and adapt, not only within the company that I run today in Decimal, but throughout my career. And one of the things that's been really validating for me is I have a coach. His name's Rich Hagberg, and he's been coaching in Silicon Valley since 1983. And he's been maintaining all of the data on all of the people he's coached. And what he's come up with is there's one characteristic that is a greater indicator of success than any others. And there are lots of them that lead up to this as well. But adaptability is the number one characteristic of successful versus unsuccessful entrepreneurs. And if you think about that, that's a really tough concept for a lot of entrepreneurs to grapple with and engage because we start our businesses or run our businesses because we're confident. We are confident we can do it. You start a business because you think it'll work. And as you spend more time in your business, as business changes, economics change, marketplaces change, people change, you start to understand that you have to adapt. You have to be that person that can change and adapt to your team. When you are a manager of 3 people, it's different than when you're managing 3 managers who are managing 10 people each. You have to adapt your structure. Part of that is adapting who you are as a person, and part of that is understanding how you can make yourself better by complementing your skill set with hiring people. For me, I hired a COO at Decimal who's a manager of execution. That is not a skill set that I am good at. And having him run the day-to-day business has made us better, has made us more successful. My joke to people is I'm really good at convincing people to jump off a bridge, but I cannot for the life of me get them to line up to do it. I need somebody like our COO, Michael, to really work with the team to get them to line up, to get them so I can sell the vision, I can sell the future. And part of this too is also adapting what you need. I talk a lot with people about how I really think there are three things that all entrepreneurs need to be successful. Number one, you need to figure out what supports your mental and physical health. What does that mean for you? For me personally, I wake up every morning and I work out and I meditate. Those are the two things that help me to get going, to get my blood pumping, they get me the energy to kind of make it through my day. Not everybody's the same, but figuring out for you what is that mental and physical health, and then allowing that to adapt as things change. My kids are now 10, 10, and 8. When they were 3 and 5, I couldn't have imagined being able to do some of this stuff. They required a lot more time and attention. Also, as I was managing more people versus managing managers, my life changed. So recognizing inflection points to help adapt how I personally and mentally am fit to lead was a really important thing for me to understand. So number one, physical and mental health. Number two is finding a peer group, finding a group of people that are leading businesses, because starting a company or running a company can be a very lonely place. Even if you have a co-founder, at some point your business will grow to the point where one of you is the CEO and one of you isn't. And that is a big change that occurs, and it gets more isolating. And you'll realize as the business grows that there's only one of you that can wear that hat. And that's a different hat than the other one. And having a group of people that you can hear their stories of success and struggle and failure, and that you can talk about your stories of success and struggle and failure, that's a really good thing. And so finding that type of peer group is one of the ways to make the loneliness go away, to create a support system that can really help you to succeed and to not feel alone. So number one, physical and mental health. Number two is peer group. Number three is invest in and pay a coach. Pay somebody to give you an unfiltered view of what you're going through. I've had a coach for almost 2.5 years now, and he has helped me look in the mirror better. And I would argue that CEOs, if you want to grow a company, you need to get really good at looking in the mirror and being honest with what you see. What are you really good at? What are you really not good at? You have to be exceptionally good at reflecting on your strengths and weaknesses. And a coach, and the right coach, can help you to do that. Because here's the thing, we all suck at it. Some of us are better than others, but the reality is we lie to ourselves. We make assumptions. We think things that aren't true. That's the nature of being human and being a confident leader. But the more you can have people around you that you listen to, and I would argue, pay. Having a mentor is awesome. That's different than a paid coach. A paid coach will give you that hard advice and that hard reflection that you need to understand, where do I hire that complementary skill set? Where can I personally grow? It helps you to understand things about yourself. One example was for me with Rich. I would always tell you prior to meeting Rich, I am a relatively confrontational person. I am okay with conflict. If I have a problem with something, I will go fix it in a heartbeat. I have absolutely no issue doing that. But Rich told me after a couple of sessions, he goes, you know what? You're a conflict avoider. And I was like, there's no way. Rich, I got a problem with you. I'm going to talk to you about it. He goes, that's not what I'm talking about. When two of your direct reports or two of your employees have a problem, you tell them to go figure it out. That is you avoiding conflict. And I was just like, holy crap, like, you're right. Like, that is me avoiding conflict. It's uncomfortable, but I'm also like, you're two adults, go figure it out. That's what I would do. They're not me. And so the reality is, when you tell people to do that, number one, they never do it. So you've just created a festering problem. Number two is they may not go through the process well. And so you can give them the chance, like, hey, I want you to go solve it. By the way, report back to me in 2 days. If you haven't solved it, we're all going to sit down and have a conversation. Nowadays, now that I'm 2.5 years into it, people now know that if I say that, I will create a very uncomfortable meeting and solve their problem if they don't do it within 2 days. But it solves that conflict. It's like I've been married for 13 years. I've found that when we talk about the things that get under our skin, we talk about the issues that happen, we talk about the craziness of 3 kids and 2 working spouses, our marriage is better. We can grow as a couple and as a family. It's the exact same thing as work. You can grow as a leadership team. You can grow as a culture if you take that ability to work together and you do it and you allow yourself to grow. You can't grow if you can't see what you need to build and improve upon. And look, there are some things that you can't. I will never be the person that can manage the day-to-day operations of a company very well. That is not my skill set. I am a relationship builder. I am a visionary. I will help you lead and figure out where we're going. I can't drive the ship. I can tell you the destination. I can get everybody on the boat. I can keep everybody there, but I'm not good at driving. And I understand that. It doesn't mean that I still don't occasionally work on those skill sets and try to work better with the manager of execution that I have working for me. But it does mean that I understand where my flaws will be and I correct for them. I also have people on my team that have certain skill sets that are amazing, but in order for them to be successful, I have to bolt people onto them that have a complementary skill set. That's uncomfortable for the people on my team because it also involves me having the conversation with them about where their deficiencies are. I'm going to have a conversation like that in the next week or so with somebody that's, hey, you are an amazing person. Here is what your strengths are. But here's also what your weakness is. I can't rely on you to be successful based on that weakness. I am going to partner you with somebody that is complementary to your skill set so that you and this project can be successful. Maybe someday, and he's much, much, much younger than I am, you can grow into having that skill set. But for now, I am going to rely on you not having it. And here is somebody that does that you can learn from. And so that's another kind of really big piece of it for me is doing the work on myself and then applying that work to the team in a way that helps them grow. And look, this is particularly in a remote environment, like in a business that has an office. I always joke with friends of mine that when you have an office, you can lazily build a great culture simply by the fact that everybody's there. You go to lunch, you get to hang out, you have all of that stuff. When you're a remote company and now with almost 100 people, everything you do has to be exceptionally intentional. Talk to the team all the time about how every employee at Decimal is an island. It's our job to build bridges. And so as we build those bridges, and it's the same with the client relationship, it's the same with partnership relationships. It's our job to build a bridge that stands up and that gets used. And so you create atmospheres for coaching and growth and work together, and all of those different things that truly get to the heart of what creates a growing and really good company and culture. One of the things that I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years is, in my opinion, the pandemic has forever changed a lot about being a business and a business owner and a leader. I mean, those of us that led companies, particularly growing companies during that pandemic, in a lot of ways, we're going to have a trauma that we're going to be unwinding for the rest of our lives. My wife and I talk, though, about how not all of it was bad. And one of the things that we learned is, particularly as a couple, and that we've applied in our jobs, is it's okay to be selfish. You learn how to be selfish so that you can then be selfless and you can help your team. You can help your family. You can help your work. And that's a weird concept because we grow up thinking selfish is a bad thing, and it is a bad thing taken the wrong way. But for those of us who have jobs that are serving people, for those of us who are trying to be a good husband, a good father, and a good leader, you have to take time to fill your own cup. And then you have to think about what that means for your team. Growing up and having a dad and a grandpa that were entrepreneurs, their entire mentality of culture of work was here's my business, and you're going to come into that and you're going to join this culture. And this culture is the rock on which you will break. And I'm not saying that companies don't have that, and we don't have certain extremely good anchors and tenets at Decimal, and other great companies have them too. But we've reached an age where it's now our job as employers to serve our team. And that's a big change in differences. It's why you see this friction between return to the office and not return to the office, is because with a remote slash hybrid environment, you're catering more to people's individualized needs than forcing the group to cater to yours. And that's a power dynamic shift. It has also been coupled by a technology improvement that's made that exceptionally easy. We do these podcast recordings remotely, and it's just as good as if we're sitting in the same room. We had Zoom that kept us sane and healthy and working during the pandemic, and that hasn't all changed. When we work, and when I work with my team, when I work with the people that I consult with and that I try to coach and mentor, I talk a lot about serving your team and meeting each one of them, creating a safe environment for them to then go be a whole person. My job and my team, it's not the only thing they do. I talked earlier in my career about how I decoupled my success from who I am as a person. I've taken that theme and I have applied it to my team now. I want to provide them. One of the reasons we love work from home and we love the remote culture is because that allows people to go run out and grab groceries at noon, or it allows them to pick up their kids. It allows them to go on field trips. I just went on my daughter's field trip the other day. I encourage my team to do those things. That's okay. Your job is to output what we ask you and employ you to output. How and when you do that, I don't care. Other than the fact that you may have to have synchronous calls with clients at various times, the rest of it can be done in your own time and at your own pace. Now, that's a full side of the spectrum, and most people are in the in between. My wife's a lawyer, a real lawyer, and she's in that in between. She's in this hybrid environment where she has an office, but she doesn't go very often, and that works for her. A lot of businesses have that. It's now our job as employers to meet our team where they are and to adapt to them and to create that safe environment for them to feel that they can be successful, that they can be promoted, that they won't be discriminated against, that they will have all of the opportunities they would have if we had a big office. That's the job that we have nowadays. It's our job to be selfish so that we can then be selfless and give to our teams that same ability to create that balance and structure that they find, and then to evolve as they need to, as life changes, as circumstances change, as kids are born, as deaths happen, as moves occur. We need to be able to adapt to the person, and that's a good thing. This is a good change, but it's a tough one because it involves a lot of thought, a lot of intentionality, also a lot of willingness to fail, learn, fail again, learn more. That's a different change culturally than we've had in the past. I would argue it's better, but it's not worse. I get into an argument with my dad all the time about how I think it's way better these days. And he's like, you got to have people in the office. And I'm like, look, my first job, my boss yelled at me one time because he walked by my office and I wasn't sitting at my desk at 5:50. And I was like, I left because I had no work. And he's like, well, you should be here till 6 p.m. That fundamentally makes no sense to me. Granted, I am an irreverent human being, so the rules are a flexible thing for me. but I've tried to apply the principles kind of behind that to how we grow Decimal. And then also the communities and cultures that I like to serve and be a part of, and what we like to give our team the ability to serve and be a part of, and how we try to coach them to do these things so that we can hopefully put that out into the world that that's okay. These changes are good. They're fine. Who cares? Let's accept the important things and let's cut the rest. How we've always done it is the dumbest, worst statement ever. It is not a reason, it is an excuse backed by nothing. So making sure that we develop the right ways to do things and do that intentionally, that's our responsibility, which, by the way, has made the job of a leader harder. 100%. It is now harder because you have to be more intentional and you have to think through things on a deeper level. But that's the job we sign up for. If you can't do that, don't sign up for the job. Those of us that do, find the community, build the strength, find the inner balance to do that well, and that's cool. For anybody that wants to follow me on LinkedIn, I really love putting out content about making it easier to be a business owner, making it okay to be authentic, making it okay to fail, to scale. I talk through my journey at Decimal so that other people can feel like they're not alone. And After the First Million, the podcast is also a great way to do that. And tactically, Decimal helps entrepreneurs with a hard part of their company. And so it all kind of comes together. So people can find me on LinkedIn, on After the First Million, or just go to decimal.com.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.